Hi, Fountain 7. It's been a long time. Looking forward to getting back into teaching you and hearing from you. We're going to be working on genetics for the next couple of weeks. And what I think it's really important to start with is some key vocabulary. So as we take these notes, I'm going to ask you to follow along with me. Use your notes template sheet like you've done since September. The only difference is I am going to ask you to submit these notes. Since we're moving towards e-learning and I can't be there to see whether you're actually taking the notes, the only way I can tell is if you submit them. So I'm not going to be grading them, okay? I'm going to be checking that you've completed them. So as I mentioned, I think the best way to start our genetic unit is to start with some vocabulary that we're going to be using throughout the unit. Now, some of these terms are already familiar. We've already used them in other units, but it's important to understand each term in relationship to the other terms. So we're going to start with a chromosome. So you all know that chromosomes are an organelle found in cells. They're found in the nucleus. We've also talked about the fact that the number of chromosomes found in a cell depends on the species. So if I'm talking about a human, that's going to be 46 chromosomes. If I'm talking about a fruit fly, that's going to be 8 chromosomes. Another time that we talked about chromosomes was during the cell cycle, and we know that chromosomes were really busy during the cell cycle. They were starting out thin, then they were doubling, then they were getting thick, then they were moving to the middle and being pulled apart and then getting thin again. There was a lot going on with the chromosomes in the cell cycle. So chromosomes are thread-like. They're found in the nucleus. They contain genetic information, so they contain the instructions for life. They are going to be the instructions for how an organism is going to function, what an organism is going to look like. And that genetic information comes in the form of genes. A gene is a portion of a chromosome, a section of a chromosome, a segment of a chromosome. So I want you to picture the DNA that we made in class together, what seems like a long time ago. So each of you made out of pasta and pipe cleaners a section of DNA. And then we took each section and we hooked it together. So now in my classroom, we have this long chromosome all around the room. Well, maybe it didn't stretch it entirely around the room, but pretty much 75% or more around my room. Let's imagine that that is one chromosome. Each segment of the chromosome is an actual gene. So each one of you made a gene. Okay, you made a gene, the person sitting next to you made a gene, the person in the back of the room made a gene. So out of your section of science, we probably had 20 genes that we hooked together to make this big long chromosome. Each section that you made, each section of the chromosome is responsible for a different trait or characteristic. So the gene that you made, the section that you made, that may have been responsible for whether you were going to have long eyelashes or not. The person next to you, their section of the chromosome, their gene, may have been responsible for whether they were going to be right-handed or left-handed. Somebody else in the class, their section of the chromosome, their gene, may have been responsible for producing a particular enzyme during digestion. So genes are portions of chromosomes, segments of chromosomes that are responsible for individual traits.
Genes, DNA, and chromosomes are what make you who you are. They are the set of instructions that are given to you by your father and mother. These instructions are in your cells, and all living organisms are composed of cells. There are many different types, like nerve cells and hair cells and skin cells. They all have different shapes and forms, but every cell has the same basic parts. The cell has an outer border called the membrane, which contains a liquid material called cytoplasm. In the cytoplasm is the nucleus, and inside the nucleus are chromosomes. In humans, each cell normally contains 23 pairs of chromosomes, for a total of 46. 22 of these pairs, called autosomes, look the same in both males and females. The 23rd pair, the sex chromosomes, differ between males and females. Females have 2 copies of the X chromosome, while males have one X and one Y chromosome. The chromosomes are really long strings of DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. DNA is shaped like a ladder that's been twisted. This shape is called a double helix. The steps of the ladder are made of 4 bases. Adenine is A, thymine is T, guanine is G, and cytosine is C. A stretch of the DNA is called a gene. Your body reads the genes and the letters like a recipe and builds protein. The order of the bases in the DNA, along with the length and sequence of the gene, determines the size and shape of the protein it builds. The size and shape of the protein determine the function it will have in your body. Proteins make up cells, cells make up tissue, and tissue makes up organs, like your eyes and your skin. So the genes determine what you are, a cow, an apple, or a human, and what you will look like, the color of your hair, your skin, your eyes, and so on.
So one thing I like about the video that you just watched is it talks about the fact that for humans, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. 23 times 2 is 46. I get 23 chromosomes from my mom, and I get 23 chromosomes from my dad. That's how I end up with the 46. So I get 1 chromosome number 1 from my mom and 1 chromosome number 2 from my dad. Each of those chromosomes contains the same basic information. So chromosome number 1 might contain information about eye color, skin color, and let's say whether you're going to have dimples or not. But the information that my mom gives me about those traits might not be the exact same information that my dad gives me about those traits. So an allele is a form of the gene. So here's, let's say, a chromosome that my mom gave me, and here's a chromosome that my dad gave me, and this box is representing a section of the chromosome. So this box is representing a gene. Here's the gene that my mom gave me for, let's say, whether I'm going to have dimples or not. Here's a gene that my dad gave me for whether I'm going to have dimples or not. Now let's look at those 2 genes. They're not exactly the same. My mom is giving me these 3 nitrogen base pairs, 2 blue and a green. And my dad is giving me these 3 nitrogen base pairs, 2 green and a blue. So they're each giving me a different form of the gene, different information about whether I'm going to have dimples or not. I know this is a new vocabulary word, and believe me, we're going to use it throughout this unit, so hopefully it will become clearer as we go forward. And then, of course, we're really familiar with DNA. We know that DNA is a double helix. We know it's made of nitrogen bases and sugars and phosphates. And we know from our DNA model in the classroom that it gets all coiled up, okay, and forms a chromosome.
Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to talk about the difference between genes and alleles. Let's start with genes. Genes are sections of DNA which code for a specific trait. You have literally thousands of genes. You have genes for eye color, hand size, metabolism, cell structure, and every other piece of your body. It's not as simple as one gene for one trait, but most basic biology classes discuss it this way for simplicity. All right, let's move on to alleles. So alleles are different forms of the same gene. Think of it as a different flavor or variety. Let's use an analogy. If Coca-Cola were the gene, the alleles would be diet, classic, caffeine-free, vanilla, cherry, or whatever kind of Coke it is. Right? Using the eye color gene, the alleles would be green, brown, gray, blue, hazel, just the different options for eye color. Just remember, the gene specifies which trait, and the the allele specifies what form the gene takes. Okay, let me say that again. This is the bottom line. The gene specifies which trait, and the allele specifies what form the gene takes. All right, and that's it. Check out my other genetics videos, and if you have any questions, throw them in the comments. Thanks.
So, to summarize, DNA, okay, that double helix gets all coiled up into a chromosome. But each section of the chromosome is called a gene. And of course, that all can be found here inside the nucleus, inside of our cell. So please take a screenshot of this page and include it in the bottom of your notes before you submit. Okay, please, just a reminder, you need to submit these notes. I know that's not what we typically do, but that is going to be the new format moving forward. So I hope you enjoyed that, and stay tuned for something more tomorrow.